Let's look now at how the ANC will unpack the country's energy crisis at that national conference. We're joined by energy analyst Chris Yelland. Chris, a very good evening to you. Grateful for your time on this public holiday. So President Cyril Ramaphosa there in his analysis says this, that issues around poor decision-making, along with inadequate maintenance, mismanagement and state capture have left our electricity system in a state of disrepair. Is that an accurate assessment of why we're in this crisis?
Well, we've heard this. There's nothing new in what the President is saying. We've heard it ad nauseum. We know where we are. We feel it every day. And until politicians start feeling it, the way the public feel it, the way, when ANC delegates at Nasrec start feeling the impact of 8 hours of load shedding at their national conference, then maybe they will start coming up with solutions instead of the same old stuff. Really, what the President said is absolutely nothing new whatsoever.
And he spent a great deal of his time at the conference talking about the just energy transition and how that is key to South Africa coming out of its energy crisis. Of course, it's in line also with the climate change objectives. Let's go back a few steps and explain what exactly our just transition plan entails and how much it'll help, especially in the immediate to medium term.
Look, the just energy transition is all about the phased decommissioning of the old Eskom coal-fired power stations and the decarbonization of South Africa, together with the reskilling of workers and the reindustrialization of the economies, the dying economies in Mpumalanga, and their replacement with new, greener, cleaner economies, whilst not leaving behind the workers on the mines and the Eskom power stations that are being decommissioned. A classic example is the just energy transition plan around the old decommissioned Komati power station, which was shut down earlier this year, and how to reindustrialize and use the skills and the infrastructure that exist in a way that grows jobs and doesn't leave people and communities stranded. But I must stress that while this is critically important, and I'm a firm believer in the just energy transition, this is not a solution for load shedding and the current electricity crisis that we face. The just energy transition is a transition that is going to take place over a couple of decades. And is not going to bring immediate relief to the load shedding we face today.
Is better policy or new policy a potential remedy to load shedding?
Well, look, policy and policy certainty is absolutely critical, and planning and regulatory certainty. But none of these, nothing that can be done by politicians is going to alleviate load shedding. What can alleviate load shedding is what can be done by customers of electricity, not by politicians. Politicians just talk. And customers of electricity can do things that can bring relief in the short term, and by that I mean, in the 6 month to 2 year term. And that is where the solutions are going to come from. It's going to come from domestic, commercial, industrial, mining, and agricultural customers of electricity doing self-generation, embedded generation, distributed generation, and battery storage on their plants and wheeling power through the grid from generators to off-takers. And this will relieve Eskom of a burden that it is currently unable to meet. And that is the only solution in the short term. What customers can do, what politicians can do, like at the ANC elected conference, is get out of the way. At the moment, policies are holding back customers, and what I would suggest that the best that could be done by politicians, by government, is for them to not only allow self-generation, embedded generation, distributed generation, but to encourage it and to incentivize it through feed-in tariffs, through tax incentives and other innovative incentives that will improve the business case and really speed up customers becoming part of the solution.
What sort of incentives would those be? Just apologies.
Okay, let me look at, for example, the feed-in tariff. At the moment, municipalities do not compensate you for generating excess renewable energy and battery energy storage into the grid. If they were to compensate you, and it would help both the municipality and Eskom and the whole country, and if you were to be compensated for energy that you generated into the grid, the uptake of these self-generation installations would massively speed up. That is one incentive. Another incentive is a tax incentive. You may know that a business that installs a renewable energy, a rooftop solar PV or battery energy storage system can write off and expense the entire capital cost of the project in the year of commissioning. This is a really big incentive, but this incentive is not available to domestic users, to individuals. It's available to business, but not to individuals. There's no good reason for this. If they simply applied the same tax incentive to individuals that they apply to businesses for installations less than 1 megawatt, it would have a dramatic impact on the business case, and it would make the installation of these facilities cash positive from day one. So that's something else that could be done.
Right.
Another thing that could be done is to lift the limit. At the moment, this incentive is only applicable to installations less than 1 megawatt. If they made it for all installations less than 10 megawatt, it would have a dramatic impact on the business uptake of these installations.
Just on the success of those interventions, if they were to be introduced, or whatever else the board will tell us in the next few weeks, it believes is a roadmap, especially out of the load shedding crisis, good leadership is going to be key. Andre de Ruyter, on his way out, he'll remain in post, serving notice until about March. The Finance Minister, Enoch Godongwana, was telling our team at Nasrec just now that, in fact, he would prefer if Eskom had a new CEO in place by February. That would be the time of the budget. Do you think it's a matter of sooner rather than later when it comes to making a permanent appointment? And what would the ideal candidate, or who would the ideal candidate be?
Look, most certainly, the sooner there is a new suitable CEO, the better. But history indicates that the recruitment processes are slow and cumbersome, and the difficulty of finding somebody that is suitable, that is willing to take up this position, is a very difficult task. And history indicates that a more likely scenario for a recruitment process is 6 months. And remember, we're not just talking about the CEO here. We're also talking about the COO, the Chief Operating Officer, who is leaving at the same time as Andre de Ruyter. So there is certainly going to be a leadership vacuum unless it can be filled, but I wouldn't underestimate the difficulty of making that appointment. The other thing I must caution is that we must not expect that some leader in shining armor on a strong horse galloping into Eskom is going to somehow miraculously save the day. The new CEO will face exactly the same problems as the previous 10 CEOs, 11 CEOs. Mm-hmm. And as you know, there have been 11 CEOs in the last decade. There is no saying that the new CEO will be the savior. In fact, frankly, no one person is the savior of a 40,000 person organization. It is a huge team effort. And I think this idea in South Africa that the CEO is somehow some kind of miraculous turnaround artist is completely optimistic. And the problems at Eskom go way beyond Eskom. They go right into the very heart of the electricity supply industry and the electricity distribution industry, the municipal sector,
right.
And also the customers of electricity who are actually the new suppliers of electricity, and where the solutions are going to come from.
So our knight in shining armor will have to come in with a couple of thousands, well, millions of oil lamps, it appears at this stage. Chris, thank you for your time.